Is it really harming children for children to receive that which they are a match to? Or is it beneficial to the children because it's giving them an opportunity to do something about what's going on inside of them? Welcome to another episode of AI and Spirit. This is the video series on the Positively Focused YouTube channel where I talk about the convergence that is occurring between artificial intelligence, stellar technologies, and technology in general, and spirit. I'm speaking about these things in the general context of the technological singularity, which is actually a spiritual inflection. It is a point at which human consciousness, has arrived at the point where it is more dominantly focused on what it wants than focused on what it doesn't want. And as a result of that, we are seeing rapid expansion of our human civilization into a future that will rival the Star Trek universe. And in this episode, I want to talk about something that an advanced client had brought up in a session this past week. And that is, she was concerned about how social media, more specifically mobile phones, and the ability of mobile phones to be 24/7 accessible to young people, how that technology is negatively impacting youth. That's what I want to talk about today. Is technology, particularly social media, harming the youth? Let's jump into it. The short answer is no. Now, if you go onto the internet, or even if you ask your favorite artificial intelligence chatbot, you will probably get a mixed message that social media and technology is benefiting young people and also harming young people. When I did a search using Gemini, which is built into my browser, and I'm going to put that search on the screen now, the predominant returns I received in that search were indicating that technology and social media, for sure, harms young people. And so it's no surprise that my client believes what this return showed. In fact, I'm certain if you look for videos on YouTube or search news archives, you will discover that the news media has reported quite often how social media, particularly Instagram, negatively impacts youth. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, there is a recent lawsuit brought on Facebook and YouTube alleging that those two companies have created an addicting force evident in their technology platforms. So how is this possible? How is it that I'm here telling you that social media and technology is not harming children, and yet the news reports and search engine searches are showing that indeed children are being harmed? The reason for this apparent paradox is simple. When you understand the fundamental spiritual principles underlying how physical reality works, you can see this clearly. All that is, which includes physical reality, is big enough, it's sophisticated enough to provide evidence supporting any point of consciousness. In other words, wherever you put your attention, you're going to find evidence consistent with what your beliefs are. And so researchers are going out with, it's not so much an assumption, but an idea that they want to find out whether or not children are being harmed by social media. And when they go and conduct their research confirms what they're going out to look for. Meanwhile, there is lots of evidence showing that not only are not children being harmed by social media, but neither are adults. In fact, nobody is being harmed. Nobody is being harmed. There are cases where children, let's speak specifically about them, are coming into contact with social media, having already developed within themselves negative momentum, so negative thoughts and beliefs, negative self-image, low self-esteem, all of that is negative self-reflected momentum. And then, as a result of having that momentum of belief, they're encountering on social media evidence supporting their belief. That's what's happening. Now, we can back up even farther and discover an even more accurate perception. And what I'm about to say is going to challenge, I believe, most of my viewers. But, and I've said this often, when you get your hands on the levers of the fundamental spiritual principles underlying how physical reality works, then you discover the accuracy of what I'm about to say, not through some sort of third party or objective confirmation, but through confirmation and validation through your own life experience. So here's what's going on in physical reality when a child enters the picture. Before that child is even conceived, the energy, the pure positive energy, and the characteristics and personality that make up that future child, that being, that energy being, is looking into physical reality, and it's seeing in physical reality opportunities that will satisfy its core values. Now, non-physical beings, which you are and which I am, when we're in non-physical, we have the ability to perceive not just one potential reality, but all of them, all of the potential realities that are a match to our vibrational focus, our dominant vibrational focus, are available to us in our perception. And so this being, who is not yet incorporated into a body, is looking into the playground of physical reality and is seeing opportunity for it to express itself in ways that will expand its awareness, while at the same time giving it an opportunity to experience adventure and joy. This is all happening even before its mother and father gets in bed and creates the conception experience. So that being, because it's multidimensional, it can see all of the potential outcomes that are going to stem from its decision to come into the physical world. And it knows that all of those potential outcomes are going to contribute to its expansion. And so it's eager to come into physical reality. No one's forcing it to be here. It's not an accident. It's not a product of evolution. It is a non-physical energy being choosing to have a physical experience. Now, because every single one of us as non-physical spiritual beings are connected to all the other non-physical spiritual beings that are a vibrational match to us, when that individual, that pre-energy being before it becomes a physical child, when that individual chooses to have an earthly experience, it also is coordinating with its cadre, the innumerable beings that are sort of along for the ride alongside this individual being. In other words, each and every one of you participates in a family of consciousness, and that family of consciousness I call your cadre. So they are the beings that are a vibrational match to you and are moving through eternity together on the experience, the collective, harmonious experience of expansion. Now, we're still talking about the energy being before the energy being has even come into the physical body as a child. That being is communicating. Remember, everything is happening all at once at the same time. So that being is communicating with the members of its cadre that are already in physical form, the future mother and father. And the future mother and father, in their physical form, agree with the non-physical physical being who has not come in as a child yet, they agree, the three of them agree to have the experience they're going to have when that non-physical being becomes a child after conception. And so there's nothing going on by chance here in non-physical or in physical reality. It's all directly orchestrated by the consciousnesses participating in that orchestration. This is why I say in the positively focused practice that you choose not only your parents, but your siblings and the circumstances in which you come into physical reality. And this is why the technological innovations that some studies are showing are harming children are not harming children. Because the children, before they became children, knew what experiences they were going to have when they chose to come here. They come pre-wired for the experience. Now, to go back to this study, this one study, I don't think I mentioned this earlier in this recording. One of the studies that I found when I did the search was saying that social media is both harmful and helpful to young people. And I'm not going to go into why they said it was helpful, but it was gratifying to see that the researchers realized there are benefits to young people, especially minorities and LGBT people, for being on social media. But it also, the same study went on to describe some of the harm that children face being exposed to social media. But what's interesting when you dive into the details of this study, this particular study, and I believe the other studies are similar because this study was referencing other studies, what's interesting is, according to their survey results, 9% of the children they studied were being negatively impacted by social media. 9%. It amounted to about 300,000 children being negatively affected by social media. 300,000 kids. So why is it that such a small number of people being negatively affected, young people being negatively affected by social media, why is it that the media is focusing on that? Well, first of all, we can't just disregard the fact that those people are being harmed. We have to do something to help those people, of course. But to assert that social media and technology in general is negatively affecting children based on a survey or a research study that shows that only 9% of the people studied are impacted, that's kind of overblowing what's really happening. And what's more, all of these research studies that science does are based on statistics. And the farther out from the population you are when you're looking at the population, the more accurate those statistical measures are. But as you get closer and closer to the population and zoom in to the specific individual, the probability of those statistics completely falls apart. In other words, the statistics work globally or generally, but per individual, the statistics completely break down. And this is consistent with the fundamental principles underlying how spiritual reality or how physical reality works. Every individual is contributing to and creating their own experience in physical reality. And no person's experience of physical reality is the same as another person's. So it's not possible to say that social media negatively impacts children, plural, because that is not the case. What's really happening when the 9% of young people who are negatively affected by social media, the research is showing, what's really happening is those children are coming to social media and they're finding evidence, feedback, reflections that match what was already going on in the child before they encountered social media. In other words, they're finding their vibrational match in social media. So it's not social media that's the villain. In fact, there are no villains, but if there's a culprit, if there's a source from which these 9% of the young people studied, if there's a source for their experience, it's their thoughts and beliefs. That's what's happening. So, is social media and technology detrimental to young people? Not at all. Why? Because those young people chose the circumstances they're coming into before they came into the circumstances. And number two, the reason why it looks like some of these people are negatively impacted is because after they come into their physical form, they begin to conclude vibrationally on subjects that they're familiar with, subjects they experience. They conclude, they come to negative conclusions. They think negatively about their circumstances, whether their circumstances are about themselves, their physical representation, their ethnicity, whatever. They conclude negatively about those subjects, and then because of how physical reality works, their physical reality has to reflect back to them what's going on inside of them. So when they get on social media, they rendezvous, they are a match to content that's going to reflect back to them what's going on inside of them. So think about this now. This is a paradox. Is it really harming children for children to receive that which they are a match to? Or is it beneficial to the children because it's giving them an opportunity to do something about what's going on inside of them? The latter is the case. It doesn't matter that consciously they are oblivious to the fact that they're creating the reality they're experiencing as a way of knowing what's going on inside of them and have full empowerment to do something about the reality they're experiencing. It's irrelevant that they don't know that's what's happening, because this entire physical reality experience is all about expansion. And expansion is always born of contrast, circumstances that cause us to know what we want and what we don't want. And then we have the opportunity in our free will expression to lean in the direction of what we want. And when we do that, we will gradually come into more and more life experience reflecting more of what we want and less of what we don't want. So is social media detrimental to young people? Not at all. Not by any stretch. The researchers who are finding those results are finding relatively small results matching what they believe. And those people who the research shows are being negatively impacted, those people aren't being negatively impacted. They're receiving feedback they need in order to process their expansion. It's so good. I say this so many times. It's so good knowing this. When you realize the fundamental spiritual principles underlying how physical reality works, the world literally becomes your oyster. It already is your oyster, you just don't know it. It already is giving you everything you want, you just don't know it. Because you don't have an understanding of the fundamental spiritual principles, and so you can't deliberately use those principles to create the charmed life. But my clients are doing it. Just the week before last, we had our advanced group session, and every person on the call was raving about how amazing their life is. Life is getting more amazing for every single one of us, whether you know it or are experiencing it or not. And in the next few years, as artificial intelligence, stellar technologies, and other technologies that are part of the technological singularity mature, it's going to become more and more evident that life is nothing but the charmed life. If you're not having that experience now and you want to get ahead of it, feel free to reach out and become a client. You can do so at positivelyfocused.co, or find someone else on the internet who resonates with what you're wanting. There are lots of people out there doing that. In the meantime, I'm going to end this video. I'm sure you have enjoyed hearing everything I've shared. It's all 100% accurate. And I'm eager to move on to create the next video. And I will see you in that one.